We're at Embry-Riddle, going to see their crash scene lab. Nice entrance, huh? I believe we're going over to a Cessna Caravan crash site, which is the initial orientation day for my cadets here at Prescott High School. And multiple crash sites documented out here. No one there. I think the caravan is over here where they actually had a flat spin. Big mess, huh?
Matt, you remember this one, don't you?
Yeah, I did my paper.
I didn't remember which one you wrote. You want to ask him about propulsion. You don't have to go far to figure that one out. See the torsion?
Yep, sure do. Big mess. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
All right, everybody, listen up. Velocity vector, straight down. It's rotating around its own center of gravity. No longitudinal separation, no longitudinal impact force. A little bit of lateral, a lot of vertical. This airplane, when it's intact, that wing is 11 feet off the ground. That's how much vertical collapse. The cabin collapsed, the overhead within 1 foot of the floor, with the passengers and seats in between. As you might suspect, they did not survive. It took 3 days to find it. You folks probably know what an emergency locator transmitter is, right? How does it activate on most airplanes? Longitudinal G's. What's not here? Longitudinal G's. This thing spun down through 65, 70 foot tall pine trees and never touched any of them in the real accident. That tells you the velocity vector. Now on this one of the other things you might want to look at, propulsion system. You folks over there can't see it, but you guys got an up close look at it. This is a 675 horsepower turboprop. If you look at the twisting, what does that tell you about the amount of power this engine was still producing when it hit? Nearly full. Composite propeller. Accident investigators do not like composites. Composites are unpredictable. They shatter. Metal is honest. But the fact that I don't have a propeller here and I know it was made out of composite, what does that additionally tell me in addition to all of this damage to the engine? What was that prop still doing at a very high rate? Spinning. Exactly right. I'd look downwind, that way. Confetti, downwind. That's composite. Now there's a couple of other things. See how the overhead is laid over? What do you think did that? Top of the airplane, roof of the airplane's on its side, upside down.
It was spinning. It was spinning.
Not spin. What's laying over there?
Seats.
All the seats.
Rescue crew.
Yeah, fire department had to cut the overhead, flip it over to get the people out. Could not separate the people from the seats. When we got this thing originally, we were still finding body parts in it. That's how bad the impact forces were. Now, if you just look at everything, you get a pretty good idea of how it hit the ground. What's our important question here, though? Why? Exactly right. Now this one, I'll tell you. Remember center of gravity? Okay, this airplane is kind of like a Cessna 172 on steroids. Normally, it's pretty docile. If you got it trimmed right and just let go, most of the time, what'll it do? Keep flying. One way to get in trouble with a Caravan, get an aft center of gravity in it. The real accident, the pilot that was supposed to be flying this thing has the flu. His replacement has 12,400 hours of flight time. Real experienced. He only has 19 hours of instrument. What's the name on that vertical fin back there? Sing it out. What does it say? Scenic. What does this airplane do most of the time? Flies tours. You don't fly tours in weather, passengers don't see what they want and they puke on you. This guy flies tours. Now this is a contract air taxi. Guess what kind of weather he's flying all the way up through?
Windy.
Solid instrument. Cloud. Icing. He gets to 14,000 feet. Requests 15. Now the tops of the clouds are forecast at 14. He gets to 15. What does he request? 17. Why does he keep requesting a higher altitude? What's he not out of? He's trying to get out of the clouds. And the problem is, he had his weight and balance for this airplane already filled out using what are called standard passenger weights. 170 pounds plus 10. What's the American population been doing the last 30 or 40 years? Getting bigger. Problem. The lightest person in this airplane other than the pilot is 190. You got one guy in this thing almost 300 pounds. Doors in the back, you got a narrow aisle. Guess where that 300-pound guy is sitting? Right in the tail. Do the real weight and balance, he's outside his rear envelope. Probably as he's starting to climb from 15 up to 17, we know he dropped off radar at 15.4. Probably what's happening, he's putting too much angle of attack. Because what the airplane stalls it with an FCG instead of the normal stall spin. What does it immediately propagate into probably the second turn? It's flat. You cannot recover this thing anymore, and it takes them probably about 4 minutes to spin down. If I want to know the status of the pilots, everybody get in as close as you can. I'll show you something. Now this is where I got to say.
Come on around, guys.
Come on, close in. Do as I say, not as I do, because I'm going to pick up a piece of this wreckage barehanded since I forgot my gloves. What is this?
The conley.
That's control yoke. See the
Stop talking.
how it's snapped off right here? What's the only way I can get that thing to snap off and produce that 45-degree angle and a fracture? You got to have a hand on it. Those of you close enough, see that throttle handle, the black handle? It's bent. Why is it bent? He's got his other hand on it. What was the pilot of this airplane doing all the way to the deck? Trying to fly it. Yeah. That tells us that's a human factors issue. It's unrecoverable. There's no way to get, unless he could get that 300-pound guy in the front of the airplane quickly, no way to recover it. And that ain't going to happen because gyroscopic action is going to keep everybody back at the ends. Now, do you see what happened to this airplane is actually pretty simple. You can figure this thing out in 2 minutes by just looking. But what's the important question? Why? And when you start trying to write it up, ultimately, you got a pilot who's not comfortable flying in weather, who's flying the airplane anyway. and he pushes the airplane past its limits with this rear center of gravity. If I was going to write a recommendation, one of the things I'd write, and this is exactly what the NTSB, one of them wrote, is weigh your passengers. Don't use standard passenger weights. If he'd done that, he probably wouldn't have had the problem because he wouldn't have let the 300-pound guy in the back of the airplane. If he doesn't make the flight, is that better than the result? This is what safety's all about. It's decisions. And a lot of times we make the wrong decisions and end up like this. This guy did not wake up in the morning saying, I'm going to go crash me an airplane. He got caught in a bunch of bad decisions, and it killed him and his 8 passengers. This is an accident.